Hello and welcome to the second video in my Caribbean cruise series. In this video, I'm going to be going into detail about everything we did in Antigua. This is the first port that we docked at on the Caribbean cruise that I went on, and if you haven't already, make sure you check out my first video, which was a ship tour of the cruise ship that we were on, which was the TUI MARELLA Discovery. This was one of my favorite ports, and there are some things that you absolutely cannot miss while you're there, so stay tuned and let's get straight into the video. As soon as we arrived, we could hear the steel drums playing. The port was so lively and it made us so excited to be there. We had arrived at St. John's, and the first thing we did was get on a bus because we had a tour booked. At all of the ports that we went to, we tried to do a tour, and we usually try to limit the tour to a half day, so it allows us to spend the second half of the day doing whatever we liked. But we did like to do a tour to see the main highlights and the main sites in each port. The tour we took with TUI was named Highlights of Antigua. On the way to the first location, the tour guide was wonderful along the drive and showed us landmarks and anything interesting that he could tell us about the areas where we were and anything that we drove past. The first stop on the tour was Dows Interpretation Centre. This is one of the major attractions in Antigua, and it is a museum with great views over the English harbour and Nelson's dockyard. Its huge grounds are also classed as a national park. I would definitely recommend coming here to take in the breathtaking scenic views over Antigua. When you enter inside the museum, they have a wonderful presentation that gives you an insight into the history of Antigua. It is so interesting. It's only about 10 to 15 minutes and it's definitely worth seeing. There's also a gift shop if you want to grab any souvenirs.
Good.
Hi, we're here in Antigua.
Sweet.
It's beautiful here. Well, the weather is gorgeous. You can see the sky is clear, crystal blue. Behind me is a gorgeous harbour. It's beautiful out here. We watched the presentation and also had free time to explore the grounds. Next, we got back on the tour bus to the next location, which was Shirley Heights. This place is a restored military lookout. The buildings have been adapted to function as a bar and restaurant. It's also locally owned, which I thought was lovely. This lookout I thought had the best views of Antigua that we saw. It overlooked the English harbour and I believe Falmouth harbour as well. And you could also see Nelson's dockyard from here. When we arrived, it was during the daytime, so there was no entertainment or anything going on really. We just enjoyed the view and the bar was open. There was also market stalls selling souvenirs and things like that. And of course, we were free to roam around and enjoy the beautiful views. However, on Sundays and Thursdays, they have live entertainment, usually someone playing steel drums, some kind of reggae music going on, and they have a barbecue, and you can also have drinks at the bar. I hear it's very lively and it's a great night out if you're in Antigua overnight. You can enjoy the sunset while enjoying the entertainment and the food and drink. Unfortunately, we weren't there on a Sunday or a Thursday, and we had to leave early anyway as we were on a cruise, but we still thoroughly enjoyed the views. I truly believe it was the most gorgeous views of Antigua that we saw, and it was even better than the previous location that I just showed you. We're here at Shirley's Heights and it's super beautiful. You can see the bay. I think that's the English Bay, isn't it? English harbour. It's so gorgeous, isn't it? We had some amazingly delicious rum punch here. The bartender was lovely, so friendly. You have to pay $10 to get into this place, and then also you have to pay for drinks and food separately. We absolutely loved this location. Next, we arrived at the final stop in our tour, which was the Blockhouse Fort ruins. These ruins had lovely views of the coastline. However, we did find that this was a bit boring. Once you'd looked at the ruins, it was kind of enough. If it's part of your tour, you may as well go, but I wouldn't go out of my way to come to this location. For me, Shirley Heights was a much better viewpoint, and it also had like a bar and a restaurant and things like that there, whereas this location literally had nothing there. There was just a small shop selling souvenirs and that was it. If you do find yourself here, I would recommend going to the shop and supporting the local ladies. They are so sweet and lovely. And that was the end of our tour. So they dropped us back off where the ship was.
Our tour guide had recommended to us the best restaurant in Antigua in his opinion, which was a restaurant called Hemmingways. So we enjoyed the walk through the colourful buildings and through the streets until we got to this restaurant. Hemmingways had a very Caribbean feel to it, and it was very busy when we arrived. There is no view at this restaurant really, but the tour guide just said that the food was super delicious here, so we thought we'd give it a try. Although the restaurant was super busy, they seated us quite quickly, which we really appreciated. We got some cocktails. I had some kind of like rum punch, but it was green, and my husband had an old-fashioned.
Babe, what do you think of the old-fashioned?
It's horrible. Very strong.
Very strong.
I hate old-fashioned, so that was horrible for me, but my cocktail was delicious. And the food was amazing, authentic Caribbean food. I'd 100% recommend this restaurant if you're in Antigua. After our lunch, we headed off to spend our afternoon in a location that we found on Instagram. This is somewhere you need to go when you're in Antigua because I've never seen it anywhere else, and it was so amazing. It was quite easy to get a taxi here from the ship port, and actually we're so glad we did because we would have struggled to find where we actually needed to be without him. So we arrived at Dickinson Bay, which is actually just a gorgeous beach on its own, but this beach is really special because in the sea there is a floating bar. It's called Kontiki bar, and it's the only floating bar in the island, and it's the only floating bar that we've ever been to. The only way to get to this bar is by boat, or you have to swim up to it, and it's quite far into the sea, so you have to be quite a strong swimmer to do this, and obviously you have to be in appropriate swimwear to do this. We just went in normal clothes, so we couldn't do the swimming option, so we had to wait for the boat. They had a one-on, one-off policy, so if the bar was to maximum capacity, you'd have to wait for people to come off before you'd be allowed to get on the boat and go onto the bar. This of course makes sense because it's floating on the sea, so they need to keep track of the weight. However, it was so frustrating because we were waiting what felt like forever for someone to come off so we could go on, and there were many of us waiting. However, those in swimwear, some of them resorted to swimming across because they can't stop you from swimming there, I guess. And that is a tip to save you from waiting for the boat when you get there. If you're a strong swimmer, you can do that option. But we finally got on the boat, and the ride was quite smooth, and we were so excited to get on the bar finally. The water was so warm and lovely though. I was very jealous that I didn't bring swimwear to be able to get in. When we arrived in the tiki bar, it was such a good vibe. The music was blasting and everyone was super friendly and ready to have a good time. They made some delicious cocktails. We just kept having rum punches, and they had all the spirits you could want, and also beers and stuff like that. We didn't see anyone having wine or bubbles, so I'm not sure if they serve it. If you do know, let us know in the comments. If you're enjoying this video, make sure you subscribe. It really does help support my tiny little channel. We really had such a good time here and we did not want to leave. I would 100% recommend coming to Kontiki bar if you're in Antigua. After this, it was almost time to head back to the ship. Our taxi driver returned to pick us up from the beach and took us back to the port. And we decided to have a look around the port before we left. The port was really lively. There are lots of bars, restaurants, shops, and lots of people around. It's a great atmosphere just there. If you came to Antigua on a cruise and you couldn't really be bothered to go and explore anywhere else, you could just have a good time around the port. Right opposite where the ships are docked, there's a really large bar area where you can have a few drinks, and it's so lively and it's a really good atmosphere there. So that's where we sat and waited to get on the ship. Then sadly, it was time to leave Antigua. Overall, we really enjoyed our time in Antigua. Like I said, it was one of our favorite ports. And when the cruise ship was about to sail off, we enjoyed the most beautiful sunset. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe for more.